The flash of cameras was blinding. "Move aside, Jungkook is here." The shout cut through the crowd like a knife. Jimin froze. For a brief second he stood surrounded by hundreds of cheering voices, yet somehow he felt completely alone. The cold evening air brushed against his face as fans rushed past him, their excited cries chasing only one person, Jungkook. The sound echoed everywhere. "Jungkook, Jungkook, Jungkook." Jimin forced a smile onto his face, but something deep inside him cracked. No one noticed. No one ever seemed to notice anymore. He watched as Jungkook was immediately surrounded by people asking for photos, interviews, and attention. Even the staff members who had been speaking with Jimin moments earlier suddenly drifted toward Jungkook. Like iron filings pulled toward a magnet, like planets orbiting a brighter sun, Jimin lowered his gaze. His fingers unconsciously played with the silver ring he always wore whenever he felt anxious. A habit nobody knew about, a small secret. A silent shield against emotions he refused to show. "Hyung," Jungkook's voice appeared beside him, warm, concerned, familiar. Jimin quickly lifted his head. You, course." Answer came too quickly, too perfectly. Jungkook stared at him. For a moment it felt as if he could see through every wall Jimin had spent years building. But then another manager called Jungkook's name, the moment disappeared, and once again Jungkook was pulled away. Jimin watched him go, the smile remained on his face. Yet his chest felt unbearably heavy. That night rain began falling over Seoul. Tiny droplets tapped softly against the windows of the dorm. Everyone else had gone to sleep, everyone except Jimin. The living room was dark except for a single lamp glowing beside the couch. Jimin sat alone. The city lights outside shimmered through the rain-covered glass. He held a cup of tea between his hands, cold. He had forgotten to drink it. His thoughts wandered back through countless moments, award ceremonies, interviews. Live streams, fan events, again and again he remembered seeing the same thing, people choosing Jungkook, praising Jungkook, talking about Jungkook, wanting Jungkook. And every time it happened Jimin told himself he was happy, because Jungkook deserved it, because Jungkook worked hard, because he loved seeing his friends succeed. All of those things were true. Yet another truth had begun growing inside him, a darker truth, a more painful one. Sometimes he wished someone would choose him first. The realization made him feel guilty, selfish, ashamed. Jimin closed his eyes. His father used to tell him something when he was younger. If you compare yourself to others, you'll forget your own value. Back then the words seemed simple, now they felt impossible, because comparison was everywhere, every comment, every headline, every ranking, every discussion. Jungkook versus Jimin, who was better, who was more talented, who was more popular, who mattered more. The questions never stopped. And over time they became poison. The dorm door suddenly opened. Jimin quickly straightened. Jungkook stepped inside carrying a small bag of food. His wet black hair suggested he had just returned from a late schedule. "Awake," Jimin smiled, "so are you." Jungkook laughed softly. "Fair point." He placed the bag on the table. "I bought snacks." Jimin nodded. "Thanks." An awkward silence followed, rare, uncomfortable. Both of them noticed it immediately. Jungkook sat down across from him. Rain continued tapping against the windows. The room felt smaller somehow. "Hyung, yeah, you've been acting strange lately." Jimin's grip tightened around his cup. "What do you mean? You seem distant." The words landed harder than expected. Jimin looked away. "Just been tired." "No," Jungkook shook his head. "It's more than that." Jimin felt frustration rising unexpectedly, not at Jungkook, at himself, at everything, at the endless pressure squeezing his heart every day. "You wouldn't understand." Words slipped out before he could stop them. Silence, heavy silence. Jungkook blinked. Immediately regretted saying it, but the emotions he had buried for months suddenly pushed their way to the surface. "You wouldn't understand what it's like." His voice trembled, barely, yet enough for Jungkook to hear, enough for Jungkook to realize something was seriously wrong. "What are you talking about?" Jimin stood up, his pulse raced. "I mean people always choose you." Confession escaped, raw, unfiltered, painful. The room became completely silent. Even the rain seemed quieter. Jungkook stared at him, shock spread across his face. Jimin looked away, ashamed. But now that the truth had begun emerging, he couldn't stop. "They call your name first." His voice grew softer. "They ask for you first." A bitter laugh escaped him. "They see you first." Jungkook slowly stood. "Hyung, I'm happy for you." Jimin swallowed hard. "I really am," his eyes strung. "But sometimes," the sentence nearly broke. "Sometimes I wonder if people would notice if I disappeared." The words shattered something between them, not friendship, never friendship, but the illusion that everything was fine. Jungkook's expression changed immediately, pain, real pain, as if hearing those words hurt him more than any criticism directed at himself. "Say that." Jimin laughed weakly. "Why not?" "Because it's not true." "Isn't it?" The question hung in the air. Neither of them knew how to answer. Rain continued falling outside. The city lights blurred beyond the glass. And for the first time in years, Jimin allowed someone to see the loneliness he had been carrying, not the performer, not the idol, not the smiling public figure, just Jimin, a person who was tired of feeling invisible, a person who desperately wanted to matter. And as Jungkook looked into his eyes, he finally understood that behind Jimin's bright smile had always existed a hidden sadness nobody had noticed, including him. Jungkook remained frozen for several seconds. The weight of Jimin's words lingered in the room long after they had been spoken. Outside, rain streamed down the windows in silver trails, blurring the city lights into soft, trembling colors. Inside, neither of them moved, neither of them knew where to begin. Jimin finally looked away. The vulnerability he had revealed felt unbearable now. He wished he could take every word back, pretend it had never happened, hide behind another smile, another joke. Another excuse, but it was too late. The truth had escaped, and truths rarely returned to their cages. Hyung, Jungkook's voice was quiet, careful, as if he were afraid of saying the wrong thing. You should have told me. Jimin laughed softly, the sound held no amusement. What would that have changed? A lot. Jimin shook his head. No, he walked toward the window. The cold glass reflected his silhouette. For a moment he barely recognized himself. The person staring back looked exhausted, not physically. Emotionally, you don't understand. Jungkook clenched his fists. Then help me understand. Jimin closed his eyes, memories flooded back. The endless comments online, the comparisons, the rankings, the debates, every day seemed filled with people measuring one person against another, as if human beings were numbers, as if friendship could be turned into competition. You know what the hardest part is? Jimin asked. Jungkook remained silent, waiting. It's not that people choose you. His reflection stared back at him. It's that I started wondering why they don't choose me. Confession hurt, even now, especially now, because admitting it made it real. Jungkook lowered his gaze. For once he had no answer, no comforting words, no easy solution. The truth was complicated, the truth was painful, and the truth was that neither of them had created this situation, yet both of them were trapped inside it. Several minutes passed, the rain gradually softened. Jungkook finally stepped forward. Need to tell you something too. Jimin turned, surprised. Jungkook rarely sounded this serious. What? A small smile appeared on Jungkook's face, sad, tired, honest. You think everyone chooses me? Jimin frowned. Because they do. Always. Jungkook sat back down, his eyes wandered toward the floor. When I was younger I used to think everyone liked you more. The words stunned Jimin. What? Jungkook laughed quietly. That's exactly my point. Jimin stared, unable to speak. Jungkook continued. You were confident. I wasn't. You looked confident. Jungkook smiled faintly. You could walk into a room and make everyone laugh. His eyes softened. You always knew what to say. Jimin remained silent. You made people comfortable. Jungkook shook his head. And I thought I'd never be able to do that. Room felt strangely different now, as if a hidden door had opened, a door neither of them knew existed. For years they had stood side by side, yet somehow they had never spoken about these insecurities, never shared these fears. Both had assumed the other possessed something they lacked. Both had secretly envied qualities the other took for granted. Jimin slowly sat down again. The distance between them felt smaller now, not gone, but smaller. I didn't know that. I know, Jungkook smiled, because I never told you. Realization settled heavily between them. How many misunderstandings were born from silence, how many wounds grew because nobody spoke about them. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Midnight had long passed, yet neither seemed interested in sleep. For the first time in months they were having a conversation that mattered. A real conversation, not about schedules, not about work, not about expectations, about themselves, about fears they had hidden from the world, and perhaps from each other. The following morning arrived quietly. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, the rain had disappeared. For a brief moment everything seemed peaceful. Until Jimin checked his phone, the peaceful feeling vanished immediately. A new article had gone viral overnight. His eyes scanned the headline, the blood drained from his face. The article compared him and Jungkook once again. But this time it was worse, much worse. Thousands of comments filled the page, people arguing, criticizing, comparing, ranking, choosing sides. Some praised Jungkook, others attacked Jimin. Many treated both of them like characters instead of human beings. Jimin felt his stomach tighten. The familiar ache returned, the same ache he thought he had escaped last night. A notification appeared, then another, and another. The article was spreading rapidly. Within minutes it was everywhere. Jimin locked his phone. His hands trembled slightly across the room. Jungkook noticed. What's wrong? Jimin hesitated, then handed him the phone. Jungkook read the article. His expression darkened immediately. The room became silent. The comfortable atmosphere from the night before disappeared, replaced by something colder, something heavier. Jungkook looked up, anger flashed across his face, not at Jimin, at the article, at the comments, at the people who kept turning friendship into rivalry. This has to stop. His voice was firm, determined. Jimin looked at him. A strange feeling stirred inside his chest. For the first time in a long while he wasn't facing the pain alone, yet neither of them realized that the article was only the beginning, because somewhere behind the flood of comparisons and rumors, someone had started deliberately fueling the conflict, someone who wanted the distance between them to grow. Someone who believed their friendship was standing in the way of something important. And while Jimin and Jungkook were trying to heal wounds that had existed for years, an unseen hand was quietly preparing to create new ones. The next few days passed under a strange cloud of tension, not between Jimin and Jungkook, between them and the world around them. Everywhere they looked, the comparisons continued. Screens glowed with endless opinions. Videos appeared discussing who deserved more attention. Posts spread across social media within minutes. Some comments were supportive, others were cruel. But all of them shared one thing: they treated friendship like a competition. Jimin tried to ignore it, he really did. Whenever his phone vibrated, he put it face down. Whenever another article appeared, he scrolled past it. Whenever someone mentioned the topic, he changed the conversation. Yet ignoring something did not make it disappear. The words still found their way into his mind. Especially during quiet moments, especially at night. One evening after a long day of schedules, Jimin found himself alone in a rehearsal studio. The room was empty except for him. The mirrors reflected endless versions of his figure, bright white lights hung from the ceiling, the air smelled faintly of wood and sweat, a familiar smell, a comforting smell. A place where he usually felt safe today felt different. Music played softly through the speakers. Jimin practiced alone, again, and again, and again. Every movement was precise, every step calculated, every gesture polished. Yet no matter how hard he worked, an irritating voice inside his head refused to disappear. Maybe they're right, the thought appeared suddenly. Jimin stopped dancing, his breathing grew heavier. No, he immediately rejected the idea, but another thought followed. What if you're not enough anymore? His reflection stared back at him, silent, unforgiving. For several seconds he simply stood there, frozen, then frustration exploded. His hand struck the nearby chair, the loud sound echoed through the empty studio. Instantly, regret followed. Jimin lowered his head, his chest rose and fell rapidly. He hated this feeling, hated doubting himself, hated comparing himself, hated becoming someone he didn't recognize. The studio door suddenly opened. Jimin quickly straightened. Jungkook stepped inside. He had clearly been searching for him. There you are. Jimin forced a smile. I was practicing. Can see that. Jungkook's eyes moved toward the chair that had been knocked over. Neither mentioned it, both understood. Jungkook walked over and sat on the floor, not saying anything, not asking questions. Just sitting there, a simple gesture, yet somehow it meant everything. After a few moments, Jimin sat beside him. The large studio suddenly felt less lonely. The music continued playing quietly in the background. You know, Jungkook said, when I was younger I thought being loved by everyone would make me happy. Jimin glanced toward him. And, Jungkook smiled faintly. It doesn't work that way. Jimin listened. The seriousness in Jungkook's voice made him curious. You can receive praise from thousands of people, stared at the floor, and still feel afraid. Afraid of what? Jungkook hesitated. For a rare moment uncertainty crossed his face. Afraid that one day they'll stop. Confession surprised Jimin. Jungkook continued. Sometimes I worry that if I make one mistake, everything disappears. His fingers tightened slightly. Support, the attention, the expectations. Jimin remained silent because he understood more than Jungkook realized. Different fears, same loneliness. The realization settled between them. People often looked at success from the outside. They saw smiles, achievements, popularity, but they rarely saw the pressure underneath, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of becoming irrelevant, the fear of not being enough, the fears that kept people awake at night. A quiet understanding formed between them, no comparisons, no competition, just two people carrying burdens neither had fully shared before. For the first time in weeks, Jimin felt some of the weight lift from his chest, not all of it, but enough to breathe a little easier. A few days later, the group attended a major public event. The venue was enormous, thousands of fans filled the arena, bright lights swept across the crowd. Music thundered through giant speakers, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Backstage, everyone prepared for the appearance. Staff members moved quickly from one room to another. Managers reviewed schedules. Security teams communicated through radios, the usual chaos before a large event. Jimin adjusted his jacket and took a deep breath. Beside him, Jungkook was doing the same. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The friendship that had nearly cracked under the weight of unspoken emotions felt stronger now, more honest, more real. A staff member suddenly rushed into the room. His expression looked worried. There's a problem. Room immediately fell silent. What happened? One of the managers asked. The staff member hesitated, then handed over a tablet. Several people gathered around it. Jimin stepped closer. The moment he saw the screen, his heart sank. A new rumor had exploded online, far worse than anything before. The post claimed that Jimin and Jungkook were secretly fighting. It included edited photos, manipulated videos, false stories, everything designed to make people believe their friendship was falling apart. Thousands of people were already discussing it. The rumor was spreading faster than wildfire. Jimin felt cold, not because he believed it, because he knew many others would. He looked toward Jungkook. Jungkook's jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. The anger was impossible to miss. Someone had deliberately created this. Someone wanted people to believe they hated each other. Someone wanted to turn their friendship into a public spectacle. The manager quickly began discussing damage control. Staff members exchanged worried looks. Phones rang continuously. The atmosphere backstage changed instantly. Tension filled every corner of the room. Meanwhile, outside, thousands of fans waited for the event to begin, unaware of the storm unfolding behind the curtains. Jimin stared at the screen once more. A strange feeling settled inside him. Not sadness, not jealousy, not insecurity, something else, determination. For months he had allowed rumors and comparisons to influence how he felt. For months he had carried pain in silence. But now someone was actively trying to destroy something important, something real, his friendship with Jungkook. And for the first time, Jimin found himself asking a question that nobody else seemed to be asking. Who was behind it all? Because rumors like these did not appear from nowhere. Someone had started them. Someone had planned them. And whoever that person was, they seemed determined to keep pushing until the friendship finally broke. The only problem was that Jimin and Jungkook were no longer standing on opposite sides. Now they were standing together, and that made them far more dangerous than anyone realized.
The event began exactly on schedule. From the audience's perspective, everything appeared normal. The lights flashed, music filled the arena, thousands of fans cheered as the members stepped onto the stage. But behind the smiles, both Jimin and Jungkook were carrying the knowledge of the rumor that had exploded only minutes earlier. Jimin could feel the tension lingering backstage even after the performance started. Staff members exchanged nervous glances. Managers remained glued to their phones. The atmosphere was different, subtly, unmistakably. Yet once the music began, instinct took over. Years of experience guided every movement, every step, every smile, every interaction. The audience responded with overwhelming energy. For a few precious moments, the noise of the internet disappeared beneath the roar of thousands of voices. And Jimin remembered why he loved performing, not because of rankings, not because of popularity, but because of connection. Because of the emotions shared between artists and fans, because of the feeling of being alive under the lights. As the performance continued, something unexpected happened. A fan near the front row raised a sign, then another fan did the same, then another, and another. Soon dozens of signs became hundreds. Jimin noticed them first. His movement slowed for a split second. The signs contained simple messages, messages written in different colors and languages, messages that carried the same meaning. "We love you, Jimin. Matter. Thank you for being you." Jimin blinked. For a moment he wondered if he was imagining it, but the signs remained, hundreds of them scattered throughout the crowd. His chest tightened unexpectedly. Emotion rose inside him, the kind that arrived without warning, the kind impossible to fake. Nearby, Jungkook noticed the signs as well. He glanced toward Jimin, then smiled, a genuine smile, one that seemed to say, "See, people do notice. People do care." Jimin quickly looked away before his emotions became too obvious. But something warm had begun replacing the cold emptiness he had carried for months. Not completely. Healing never happened that quickly, yet it was a start. After the event ended, the members returned backstage. Everyone appeared exhausted but relieved. The performance had been successful, the audience had been incredible. For a short while, things felt normal again. Then Jimin's phone vibrated. The feeling vanished immediately. A message had arrived from an unknown number. No name, no profile picture, nothing. Jimin frowned. Normally he would have ignored it. Something made him open it. The moment he read the contents, his entire body stiffened. The message contained only one sentence. "People always choose Jungkook because they know the truth about you." Jimin stared at the screen, his pulse accelerated. A second message appeared. "You should stop searching for answers." A third message arrived almost immediately. "Some secrets are better left buried." Jimin felt a chill run through him. The words were unsettling, not because they made sense, because they didn't. What truth, what secret, who was sending these messages? His mind raced across the room. Jungkook noticed his expression. "What happened?" Jimin hesitated, then handed him the phone. Jungkook read the messages. The color drained from his face. For the first time since this entire situation began, genuine concern appeared in his eyes. "That's not normal." "I know." Jimin's voice was quiet. The room suddenly felt colder, more dangerous. The rumors had been one thing, cruel but common. This was different, personal, targeted, intentional. Someone was watching closely enough to know what was happening. Someone wanted Jimin to feel isolated, someone wanted him to doubt himself. And now they were contacting him directly. Jungkook immediately called one of the managers. Within minutes, several staff members gathered around, screenshots were taken, security teams were informed. The number was investigated, but the results were frustrating. The sender had hidden their identity, no useful information appeared. It was as if the messages had come from nowhere. That night, long after everyone returned to the dorm, Jimin found himself unable to sleep. The city outside was quiet, most lights in neighboring buildings had already gone dark. The digital clock beside his bed displayed 2:17 am, yet sleep felt impossible. The anonymous messages replayed endlessly inside his head. People know the truth about you. The sentence irritated him because it implied something existed, some hidden fact, some buried secret, but there wasn't one. At least not that he knew of. Jimin sat up, frustration growing. His gaze drifted toward a shelf near the corner of his room. There, among books and awards, sat an old storage box. A simple box filled with memories, letters, photos, small keepsakes from years ago. Without thinking, he walked over and opened it. Dust floated through the air. The smell of old paper filled the room. Jimin smiled faintly. Many of the items came from his trainee days, a period of his life that felt impossibly distant now. He carefully sorted through them, photographs, practice schedules, handwritten notes. Then something caught his attention. A folded piece of paper hidden beneath several older documents. He frowned. He didn't remember seeing it before. Slowly he unfolded it. The paper was old, yellowed with age. The handwriting was unfamiliar. Jimin read the first line. His heartbeat immediately stopped, then accelerated rapidly, violently. The note mentioned his name. It also mentioned Jungkook, and beneath both names was a sentence that made no sense at all. If this ever becomes public, everything will change. Jimin stared at the words. Confusion flooded his mind. He turned the paper over. There was no signature, no date, nothing identifying the writer, just those words written years ago, long before the recent rumors, long before the anonymous messages. Long before any of this began. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Jimin lowered himself onto the edge of the bed. His thoughts spiraled. How had this paper ended up among his belongings? Who wrote it? And why did it feel connected to the messages he had received tonight? Outside, the city slept peacefully. Inside, Jimin's world was becoming more complicated with every passing hour. For the first time, he began to suspect that the person spreading rumors might not simply be trying to create drama. Perhaps they were searching for something. Perhaps they already knew something. Or perhaps they wanted Jimin to believe there was a secret hidden somewhere in his past. A secret he had never known existed. And as he stared at the mysterious note beneath the dim light of his room, one unsettling possibility refused to leave his mind. What if the answers he was looking for had been waiting beside him all along? The note remained in Jimin's hands long after the clock struck 3 in the morning. The words seemed ordinary at first glance, yet the more he stared at them, the heavier they felt. If this ever becomes public, everything will change. Who had written it? Why mention both his name and Jungkook's, and why had he never seen it before? Jimin carefully examined the paper again. The handwriting was neat but unfamiliar. There was no signature, no date, no clue, just a mystery that seemed to appear at the worst possible time. He leaned back against the bed. Exhaustion weighed on him, but curiosity was stronger. Eventually, sleep claimed him, not peacefully. His dreams were filled with fragments of memories, training rooms, bright stage lights, crowded hallways. Voices he couldn't recognize, faces disappearing before he could see them clearly. When morning arrived, he woke feeling even more tired. The folded note still rested on the bedside table, proof that none of it had been a dream. A few hours later, he met Jungkook in a quiet practice room. The moment Jungkook entered, he noticed the serious expression on Jimin's face. "You didn't sleep." Jimin gave a weak smile. "Neither did you." Jungkook sat down across from him, still thinking about those messages. Jimin nodded. Then he pulled out the mysterious note. Jungkook's eyebrows furrowed. "What's that?" "I found it last night." He handed it over. Jungkook carefully read the words. For several seconds he said nothing, then he looked up. His expression was thoughtful. "Never seen this before. You don't recognize the handwriting?" Jungkook shook his head. No. Silence followed. The mystery remained unsolved, yet something about the note bothered Jungkook. Jimin could tell. "What are you thinking?" Jungkook hesitated, then sighed. "I don't know." His fingers tapped lightly against the paper. "It just feels strange." "Strange how?" Jungkook stared at the note again, as if someone wanted it to be found. The idea sent a chill through Jimin because he had been thinking the exact same thing. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. Years of being hidden, then suddenly appearing after anonymous messages and rumors began spreading. It felt deliberate, planned, almost like a piece of a puzzle placed directly in front of him. The question was why. The following week became increasingly complicated. The rumors continued, the anonymous messages continued, and despite every effort from management, nobody could trace their source. Whoever was responsible knew exactly how to stay hidden, yet something unexpected happened during that time. Instead of growing apart, Jimin and Jungkook became closer, not because of the rumors, because of the conversations. For years, both of them had hidden parts of themselves, the pressure, the fears, the insecurities. Now those walls were slowly disappearing. One evening after rehearsal, they found themselves sitting on the rooftop of a building. The city stretched endlessly below them, lights glittered across the horizon, the air was cool, peaceful. For a while neither spoke. They simply enjoyed the rare silence. Then Jungkook suddenly laughed. Jimin looked at him. "What?" Jungkook shook his head. "I was just remembering something." "What?" "A trainee evaluation." Jimin frowned. "Which one?" "The one where you forgot part of the choreography." Jimin immediately groaned. "Oh, number," burst out laughing. "You look so confident right before it happened." Then you completely panicked. Jimin covered his face. Stop. Jungkook laughed harder for the first time in days. Jimin found himself laughing too. The tension eased, the anxiety faded just a little. And in that moment, surrounded by city lights and old memories, he remembered something important. Their friendship had survived years of challenges, years of pressure, years of change. A few rumors wouldn't destroy it. Neither would anonymous messages. Whoever was behind this seemed to believe friendship was fragile, easy to break, easy to manipulate. They were wrong. Days later, a major interview was scheduled. One of the largest media appearances of the year. Millions of people would watch. The members gathered backstage before filming began. Everyone appeared calm, professional, prepared. Then a staff member approached the manager, whispering urgently. Jimin noticed the sudden change in the manager's expression. Something was wrong. Again, a few moments later, the manager walked toward Jimin and Jungkook. His face looked unusually serious. We have a situation. Jimin immediately felt tension return. What happened? The manager hesitated, then handed over a tablet. An article had just been published. But unlike previous rumors, this one included photographs, very old photographs, images from their trainee years. Most of them were harmless, practice sessions, group activities, everyday moments, yet among them was one photograph neither Jimin nor Jungkook remembered seeing before, a photograph that seemed strangely familiar. The image showed several trainees standing together. At first glance, nothing appeared unusual. Then Jimin noticed something, a person standing in the background, partially hidden, almost impossible to see. His heart skipped a beat. The face looked familiar, not because he knew the person. Because he had seen the face recently, very recently. Jimin quickly reached into his pocket and unfolded the mysterious note. His eyes moved between the photograph and the handwriting. A realization began forming, slowly, uneasily. The handwriting looked remarkably similar to words written on a notebook the mysterious person in the photograph appeared to be carrying. Jungkook noticed it too. His expression immediately darkened. Neither spoke, neither needed to. For the first time they had found something real. A connection, a lead, a person. The mystery was no longer faceless. Someone from the past had suddenly stepped into the present. Someone connected to both of them. Someone connected to the note. And perhaps someone connected to the rumors as well. Jimin stared at the photograph. Strange feelings settled over him, not fear, not confusion, determination, because after weeks of questions he finally had something to follow. A thread leading backward into forgotten years. Toward memories buried beneath success, fame, and time. Toward a truth that had remained hidden for far too long. And somewhere inside that old photograph, a forgotten face seemed to be waiting for them to remember. The search for answers began quietly. Neither Jimin nor Jungkook wanted to attract more attention to the rumors. They had already seen how quickly speculation could spread. Instead, they focused on the photograph. Old records were reviewed, former staff members were contacted, memories were revisited. What initially seemed like an impossible mystery slowly began to unravel. The person in the background of the photograph turned out to be a former trainee who had left years before anyone debuted. His name had long been forgotten by most people connected to the company, but not entirely. A few former employees remembered him, they remembered his talent, they remembered his ambition, and unfortunately, they remembered his disappointment. According to those who knew him, he had dreamed of standing on stage more than anything else. He had trained for years. Sacrificed years of his youth, endured endless evaluations. Yet when the time came he was not selected, others moved forward. He did not. The rejection devastated him. Over time, resentment replaced hope. Then he disappeared from everyone's lives. For years, nobody heard from him again. Until now, as more information surfaced, the pieces finally connected. The anonymous messages, the edited photographs, the rumors, the comparisons, they all traced back to the same source. The former trainee had become obsessed with the idea that life had treated him unfairly. In his mind, Jimin and Jungkook represented everything he had lost, everything he believed should have been his. He had spent years watching from a distance, years carrying bitterness, years convincing himself that if he could not have success, he could at least damage the happiness of those who did. When the truth finally emerged, Jimin expected to feel angry. Instead, he felt something else, sadness. Because behind all the manipulation and cruelty was a person who had allowed disappointment to consume his entire life, a person who had become trapped in the past, someone who never learned how to let go. One evening, after everything had been resolved and the rumors had finally begun to fade, Jimin found himself standing alone on the rooftop where he and Jungkook had talked weeks earlier. The city lights stretched endlessly before him, the same skyline, the same cool breeze. Yet everything felt different now. Footsteps approached from behind Jungkook as expected. Jimin smiled. "You always find me," Jungkook laughed. "Easy to find." For a moment they stood together in silence, watching the city, watching the countless lights flicker in the darkness. Eventually Jungkook spoke. "Do you feel better?" Jimin considered the question carefully. The answer wasn't simple. The loneliness had not disappeared overnight. The insecurities had not magically vanished. Healing rarely worked that way. But something had changed, something important. "Yeah," Jimin finally said, "I think I do." Jungkook nodded. Neither needed a longer explanation because both understood. The real battle had never been against rumors or anonymous messages or jealous people. The real battle had been against the doubts growing inside their own hearts, the belief that they were not enough, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of being overshadowed. Those were the enemies that had nearly won, but not anymore. Jimin looked toward the horizon. His father's words suddenly returned to him. "If you compare yourself to others, you'll forget your own value." The first time in a very long while he truly understood them. People would always compare, the world would always have opinions, some people would choose Jungkook, others would choose Jimin, that was inevitable, but value was not determined by comparisons, friendship was not determined by popularity, and happiness could never be measured by who received more attention. The realization felt freeing. Like finally setting down a burden he had carried for far too long. Weeks later, during another major event, thousands of fans filled a massive arena, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. The lights illuminated countless faces. As Jimin stepped onto the stage, the familiar roar of the crowd greeted him. This time he noticed something different, not because the crowd had changed, because he saw signs carrying Jungkook's name, he saw signs carrying his own, he saw people cheering for different reasons. Different favorites, different connections, and suddenly none of it hurt, because he no longer viewed their support as a competition, only as love expressed in different ways. A smile spread across his face, a genuine one, the kind that came from peace rather than performance. Beside him, Jungkook noticed. Their eyes met briefly, no words were exchanged, none were necessary, years of friendship spoke louder than any conversation. The music began, the audience erupted into cheers. And together they stepped forward into the light, not as rivals, not as competitors, but as friends who had survived misunderstanding, insecurity, and doubt. Friends who had learned that being chosen by everyone was impossible, but being valued by the people who truly mattered was enough. As the performance continued, Jimin looked out across the sea of lights one final time. This time he did not wonder whether people would notice if he disappeared, because he already knew the answer: he mattered. Not because he was compared to someone else, not because he was chosen over someone else, but simply because he was himself. And for the first time in a long while, that was more than enough. The end.